Look, our bodies can produce any enzyme we require. Okay. And when I actually mentioned to, in my interview with Joey, I made it quite clear that cooked meat is not a problem. But I said that maybe this was hypothesizing, and he took it. I don't know how he took it, misunderstood. But I was actually saying, well, if somebody's got, they've come from a veganurized diet, they're very unhealthy, and they've got very poor stomach acid and stuff like that. I said, maybe under those sort of circumstances, because you're not really, some of the enzymes can survive and, and get through. It depends on the pH of the stomach. It's like bacteria and enzymes and stuff like that. What's your pH? If it's too low, less likely. There is a type of like pepsin type thing that can actually is in animal foods. It can actually, whether it's, so that, yes, but even cooking doesn't really deteriorate too much of that. So it's a bit of a, it's not clear. The literature is very unclear on it. I've tried to look to find more stuff. I haven't been able to find any good stuff in that regard. But if your pH is, like let's, a lot of people's pH is too high, and sometimes even higher than that of like the 3.5, which is a chimpanzee's. Under those sort of circumstances, it can be helpful to have some of those enzymes that are still sort of breaking down and helping with the digestion. But if your pH is very low, not required. So if you've got normal human, not a problem. And not only that, cooked meat has a number of other benefits. It does actually raise nutrition. It actually increases retinol. So retinol and many other the fat soluble vitamins are much lower when you have raw meat. And also cooked meat tends to break down some of the actual structures, which makes it easy to digest. And that's why we were able to eat more, consume more of an animal, and become bigger bodies, bigger brains and everything, because of the ability to extract more nutrition by cooking. So cooking has a big advantage. It made us, many people claim that if Homo erectus didn't invent cooking approximately 1.5 million years ago, modern humans wouldn't have evolved. We would have had a much smaller brain like Homo erectus. Maybe. It's a hypothesis. Can't be really proven, but there's definitely some validity to saying that by cooking meat, it actually helps with digestion in somebody who is healthy. Okay. Somebody who's deranged, and as I pointed out in that video, I was quite clear that I wasn't against cooked meat. I was quite clear that somebody, and he mentioned my name, he shouldn't have brought my name at all in the conversation, so anyway. And the thing is, I was quite clear that, obviously if your pH isn't very low and you've got poor stomach acid and stuff like that, some of these enzymes can be useful in the digestion. And maybe this is where I was saying, maybe this is why people who come off a vegan diet find it much easier to digest raw meat than cooked meat, is because, some of those, more of those enzymes sort of survive. They can break down, help with the breakdown. And also there's more taurine. Over time, that ceases to be the case, because even the proton pumps that are in the stomach, they do require not only chloride, but they also require taurine to be regulated. And taurine also can suppress H. pylori if that's the problem of the low stomach acid. So if your pH is too high, low stomach acid, it could be candida, It can so candida and also H. pylori can suppress H. pylori. I think can suppress a bit stomach acid a bit more. So it's a bit more nuanced, and that Joey didn't pick up on that nuancing. Maybe you should go back and listen to the video, the interview that he did of me, and understand how I was using. I didn't go into all the nuance. I've actually explained a bit more now than what I explained on the video, because that wasn't the purpose of the video. I was just throwing that out in a generalized comment at the time. I wasn't being specific, you know. To be specific, you know how I am. I'll do a video and I'll actually show you the research. I'll show you pH levels. I'll do all that and show mechanistic studies and all that. I'll go into detail. I'll back myself up. Why? You know, but in general conversations, you're not required to, you know, you're just giving general. But as I said, if I don't say something is a hypothesis and I want to back myself up, I've always got the data, or I've always got proof to be able to show, because I've looked into it. I've, you know, reviewed a lot of literature in my life in the last 11 years in particular. So I've got a deep understanding of what the literature shows and doesn't show. And I'm quite clear anybody can, you know, can look these things up if they want to. But, you know, cooked meat has its advantages, and under certain physiological conditions, raw as well. I do like a bit of, you know, beef tartare with egg, with yolks and pepper and salt. It's not everybody's cup of tea. Fair enough. You know, I do all sorts of things, but that doesn't mean. I'll give you an example. Fried eggs. If you look at fried eggs and raw eggs, fried eggs have more nutrition. It actually goes up. All the values go up. There's only one thing that goes down. That goes down. I just can't remember it. And you know, so there's a lot of nonsense out there about a lot of things in that regard. But the difference is, why would somebody do raw eggs over cooked eggs? I'll tell you, it's simple. You can actually consume more raw eggs than you consume. So if I want to put down 20 eggs, I'd have them raw because it's much easier to swallow them. It's much harder to chew through 20 eggs, I can tell you. I've tried it. So there's a place for raw eggs. And I know that I'm not going to get as much retinol and a few other things, a number of other things that actually go up when you cook. Surprise, surprise. So cooking has advantages in actually bolstering certain nutrients. So, yeah, it's just based, yeah, pretty much Joey's ignorant of that. He's a new starter. He's just started looking into this sort of stuff. And unfortunately, he's come across a number of unsavory characters like Varys and Sverige, filled his brain with a whole lot of nonsense, which is not even based on any research. And this is why me and Bart rail against certain people. And it's not, we don't do it because we've got nothing else to do in life, but they're putting out pseudoscience. They're putting out pseudo ideas. You know, it's the old paleo nonsense and all that. It's like I did the video recently on milk. You know, obviously, if you don't have lactose, if you've got lactose intolerance, you can't tolerate the proteins in milk, you shouldn't be consuming it. I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, you know. But if you can tolerate it, if you've got no problems, like you've got genetics like I have, or a lot of the Irish have, and people like that, I don't see a problem with it. It's an animal food, and it's got good nutrition. So this is where a lot of the problems lie. And people make a lot of nonsense. Joey was making all sorts of claims, even about the Maasai. The Maasai, actually, if you look at my recent video that I did on the Maasai, from their own mouths, not some academic talking a mouthpiece, but actual from their own mouths. They live into old age, and they also you know, whether the records are very accurate or whatever, they still live much older age than many other people in that region, and healthy and robust. And even Mary couldn't keep up with an 80-year-old. So they're quite good in that regard. On the other front, they don't consume a lot of beef. Yeah, surprise, surprise. Most of their cattle are used for milk purposes. And they don't consume a lot of milk either, 2 to 3 glasses of milk. That's about it with blood. It's not a massive amount. It's just the way it is. And this was observed by Mary. And she actually took ketones and blood sugar levels off all these Maasai over a number of days continuously. So I would rely more on her than some idiot that goes there, observes and thinks they're the expert. I know what they consume. A bit like, Salad Boy, goes in, oh, they must be honey guzzlers, ignoring everything else and coming back and a mouthpiece. Where she tried to go in and understand. And she actually even talked about the hydration. They don't hydrate like we do. So she realized they do things differently. She was observant enough to notice these things. It's the same thing when she went to Ikaria in Greece, because she does reside in Athens. Her partner's a Greek, and she actually observed, these old ladies cooking up pork belly and organs and whatever. Nothing goes to waste. But they're not, like consuming this sort of stuff on an everyday basis or in excess amounts either.